When you think about your brand at Philine of San Francisco, what do you think is a unique differentiator for you?
Well, I do a lot of, original prints, and I use, faux fur, and, the styles are kind of dramatic, and they're also, fitted. So that's a style that's not always that common today. A lot of those types of garments like festival jackets, they're all kind of straight, and mine are really fitted to the body, which is something a lot of women love. And at any size, you look better in a fitted coat.
Hi there. Welcome, everybody. I am so incredibly excited about today's guest. Philine Rauh Edwards joins us. She has had a long history in the garment industry. She started out working for importers where she learned the business. She traveled all over East Asia and Europe. She conducted market research and she designed so many seasonal collections. And she has this long history in the fashion industry. When she returned back to the Bay Area to raise her family, she was the design director for City Lights. She created their very successful yoga lines and also their performance wear. She also rounded out her employee career at Rainbow as the creative force behind 4 seasonal collections and several private label accounts. She finalized her work life before she launched out on her own over at Nordstrom. And here she was really enkindled her love for coats. So coats were a big part of her history. And she's going to share with us how this really reconnected with her and her mother's journey. So a very interesting story. And I can't wait to share that with you. Philine today owns Philine of San Francisco. Her coats are absolutely gorgeous. We were just talking about one that I'm planning to buy right after we get off the line here today. And she celebrates global unity through her design and honors different cultures who are searching for a better life. So it gives me a great honor and a privilege to introduce somebody who is doing beautiful work, creating beautiful clothing out there in the community, but is also connecting back to a better world. So welcome, Philine. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
So glad to have you here. And when we met and I saw some of your designs, Philine, I was blown away by how beautiful they are and unique. Such vintage looks and just gorgeous. And so I know in reading your bio and learning a lot about you, I know that you really are inspired a bit by your mother's journey. And I was curious how her journey really inspired you. What was the journey all about, and how did it lead you to develop your coat line?
Well, my mother, she had immigrated, from a war-torn Germany to the United States. Couple of years after the war ended, she had an opportunity to come here, but they were very poor, and they didn't have much, and so she was getting ready to take that voyage on the ship, and one of their artist friends had gifted her this coat, and even though it was a hand-me-down, but she felt so empowered in that coat. Like she felt like now she could take that trip, and it was
Your mom had a power coat.
she had a power coat, and it was like little bit classic, but it had some velvet trim and stuff. So she felt very fancy, and that really enabled her to have the confidence to make the scary journey.
Right. Absolutely. Well, and it's so funny because clothes really do inspire confidence, don't they? Right. And so, it's an interesting story that she had, that she's feeling fearful, and then this boost of confidence propels her to do what she needs to do next. Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So now I know your history in fashion has been lengthy, right? I mean, you have just been all over the world. You design beautiful collections. You are so experienced and award winning at every really step of the way. You've won awards and done so well. And I know this led you to a personal story, right? Eventually you went through the years, and you have a big resume, not only for making beautiful designs, but in education as well. So tell me a little bit about your history and how you got into all this.
Well, I started actually here in San Rafael. I, was, working in the fabric store there in Kaufman's Fabrics. And then, I was looking for something else to do. And so there was a tailor, he had put an ad in the paper, looking for an apprentice. So I worked with him and he taught me alterations and how to alter clothes. And he told me, which is something that was very true, is that if you know a trade, you will always have work, So I then, he encouraged me to go to New York because I was interested in design. And so I did that and, did the whole garment center and worked many years in the garment industry. And then it's funny because after a while I had gotten kind of aged out of the business and was able to do the tailoring again. So I got a, job at Nordstrom, which I still work at part-time, altering men's coats, working in the suit department.
The coat history sticks with you, and you talked about aging out. And one of the things that I find pretty inspiring about you, Philine, first of all, is that you're so open about sharing your personal experiences and your story. And I think it's really inspiring and it's great guidance for others. And I was wondering if you could expand a little bit on what did it mean to age out in the garment industry? What happened?
Well, when you're working for other people, of course, there's designers like Armani that designed gorgeous collections until he died, I think last year at 90 something. So if you're backed by someone like you have a real company like that, then of course you're in charge. But, for those of us who were working for other people, people always want like a new thing. And what happened was I was actually making a lot of money for this company. And then they hired some new salesperson. She's like, oh no, you have to bring my designer. And, it wasn't the first time I had been laid off. This business is like that, but every interview I was able to get, it was always like, oh yeah, you're so experienced. Thank you. But, I realized, I wasn't going to get another job like that because the people that were interviewing me were like 35 or 40.
Right.
And I was like their mother, right? Even though I, I'm very experienced and could do a good job, I don't think they saw me in that way. So I finally had to come to terms with that. And so that's why I decided to go out on my own.
Yeah.
Well,
it turned out to be the catalyst, right? But I'm sure, you talk about how this affected you professionally, which is clear. But I'd imagine that this affected you personally as well, right? You feel some emotion connected with that. Can you expand a little bit on how that made you feel emotionally and what you went through?
Well, yeah, I was devastated. And still I have nightmares about that happening. And that was a long time ago now, 15 years ago or so. But, yeah, of course it's crushing. And then, and now what I see is that the way things are designed, it's not hands-on, it's all through, copying over some spec sheet that you already made. And I can see it in the clothes that are out there because it's not thought through from the beginning, the
Right.
way that we used to do it.
Right. Well, and we lose quite a bit with that. I was thinking, gosh, you've been through a lot and you have so much experience, and obviously you're bringing it on in your own business, your own designs, which we're going to talk about. But you kind of alluded to this mentor, which, what a wonderful person that really introduced you to the industry, taught you about alterations, got you involved. That's pretty incredible. And I feel like you're in a position to give some of that back and give advice. Have you mentored anyone yourself, or do you provide advice to other designers trying to start out?
Yeah, there have been a few that, were in design school where I went to Pratt, and I've had a few calls from people, looking for advice. And so I would love to do more of that actually, and hopefully bring on an intern or something, here as I grow my small business.
Just wonderful. Well, I'm sure I can give you a bunch of referrals because I have kids in my life, and many young women would love to be designers, right? So if they have the talent, maybe they can get on Philine's roster. I think they would love that. So that sounds
Oh,
amazing.
thank you.
Definitely refer them your way. I wonder, I'm also thinking just more globally. I mean, I feel like aging out of your industry, that's a thing that happens to a lot of people, right? So you're obviously experiencing it in the fashion world, which is young and fast and changing and all those things. So you experience it at a certain level. But what advice would you have for people who are aging out of their industry? I mean, you managed to get through that and springboard it to huge success, right? And do you have any words of wisdom that you'd provide to others that are experiencing that type of thing?
Well, there has to be a point of, acceptance that this is, how it is. And, you have to get to that point. Like for me, I had to get to that point where, okay, maybe it's someone else's turn now to have that job. And, then to try to find something related that will give you that kind of, you know, charge or, rekindle that love for what you do, maybe in another capacity or, just to still be a part of it, but maybe now it's time for the younger people to have that, and just to not see it as I did something wrong or it's my fault or if I had only, that kind of thinking isn't going to be productive.
Not healthy or productive, right? So,
Yeah.
well, rekindle yourself, you did, right? So you took it to a whole nother level and really started your own business essentially, and went out and started Philine of San Francisco, and it's incredible. You have a website, philinesc.com. So many beautiful designs on there. So I thought maybe you could share with me, tell me about your award-winning collection. What's your signature style, your favorite pieces? Tell me everything.
Well, my inspiration is vintage. I love vintage clothing, and I grew up in the 60s here in San Francisco, and my parents were bohemians, and my whole family, goes back to that. So I just, love to make clothes that empower you, like to stand out. And, when you get older, many of us women know we become invisible, but if you dress cool and you wear something fun, people are going to talk to you like, oh, I love your jacket. I get so many young people that, want to talk to me when they see my clothes, so it's one way of, standing out. And that's what I like to make, is just things that are fun. And when you put it on, you just feel special, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I just recommend everybody go to FlynnSF.com, because when you do, you're going to see some beautiful designs. And Philine, I've seen some gorgeous coats on there, just absolutely beautiful. I'm deciding which one currently for myself. But you do more than coats, right? So tell me a little bit of how you've expanded the business.
Well, I also make suits, these fitted suits. And this season I'm using some fabric from Canada that has been created from recycled plastic bottles. And
Wow,
so,
cool.
and I try to do things in a sustainable way. I make small quantities, and a lot of my things are pre-ordered. So it's not like and also I, don't have the capital to just make all this stuff, because I mean, I'm a small business. And then I've also added some silk dresses because I work with this nice fabric company down in the South Bay where I've been buying silk prints from them for a long time, and they're beautiful, and really fun. And I've been using them in my linings for a coat collaboration that I have with Love on Hate in San Francisco. So I always put the silk linings in there, and they do these really fun tie-dyes that they give me. And so that's been an ongoing thing, and sometimes has what's kept me going.
Yeah,
Honestly.
beautiful. Well, and you sparked something in me because you talked about how the suit line is all sustainable materials and so forth. And I remember that you have been kind of a pioneer in the organic clothing space. Can you expand on that a little bit and your experience and how you kind of led the way in that area?
Well, I mean, my last job that I had, I was trying to do that. And at that time, we were selling to people like Kohl's and, kind of mid-tier department stores. And I was trying to introduce that recycled fabric. And they were like, oh, that's nice. But, my customer is not going to pay an extra $3 and stuff. So that was, back then. And now, it is a thing that people do consider. I mean, maybe not at that price point still, but, it's something that a lot of people are into. And I also have been not director, but consultant for a company in San Francisco called Blue Canoe. And they have been in business almost 40 years and were one of the first people to do organic cotton. So in that way, I've been, with her for like 7-8 years now, helping her every season to design her, beautiful organic bras and helping her with her photo shoots. So in that way, I've been a part of that as well.
Wonderful. Well, I love the combination. Your inspiration is vintage, but your ideas are very forward thinking. So the combination is wonderful. So I love what you're doing. So now, where do you think, I mean, I was referencing the website. Is that the best place for viewers to go to shop and see your line?
Yeah, you can shop on philinasf.com. That's the best place. And if you're local here, you can come to my studio as well. So you can reach out to me on the website. Yeah.
So on the website, it's going to indicate where your studio is and they can reach out.
Contact me. Yeah, you just contact me on the website.
Perfect. So everybody heard it here, philinesf.com. Go and shop online. If you're like me, I do it all online these days. And what's different from a lot of your experiences online is when you receive it, it's actually going to be a very beautiful product designed by Philine herself, which we've all had experience shopping online. And here's one you can rely on. So I definitely recommend everybody go visit and find your next beautiful showpiece that'll be a showstopper, right, Philine? And we can answer curious questions about it and enjoy. So thank you for sharing that with me. I wanted to ask you, and we talked a little bit about your inspiration being the vintage style and the coats, your mom's story really, really connected you so that you knew your vision and what you wanted to do. When you think about your brand at Philine of San Francisco, what do you think is a unique differentiator for you?
You mean from other brands?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I do a lot of, original prints, and I use, faux fur, and, the styles are kind of dramatic, and they're also, fitted. So that's a style that's not always that common today. A lot of those types of garments like festival jackets, they're all kind of straight, and mine are really fitted to the body, which is something a lot of women love. And at any size, you look better in a fitted coat.
100% agree. And they're so beautiful. And I just encourage everybody to go check it out. And really, if you're looking for that showpiece kind of item in your wardrobe, I feel like you might find it at Philine of San Francisco. So get on our website, philinesf.com, check out the designs, or if you're local, connect with Philine because I'm sure she'd love to host you and show you her designs and help find you the most beautiful next piece. So Philine, when you're not managing a small business, designing, working with your causes and doing all these things, what do you like to do in your free time? What do you do besides designs?
Well, I need to be inspired. So I do a lot of hot yoga, and once a year I go to Burning Man, and I go to, I just went to the fog art exhibit. That was super fun. So I, hang around with my 2 gorgeous daughters whenever I can. And that pretty much fills me up.
I love it. And you know, really, like, the cool thing is with the industry that you're in, getting filled up in that way, you get to be active and seeing people and see what inspires that next design. So I love it. So, well, Philine, this has been such a pleasure. I hope everybody on the call goes and visits you. Remind us where to visit you to shop, Philine. What's the best place?
www.philinesf.com.
And Philine is spelled PHILINESF.com. So you heard it here, everybody. Please interact with our content. Please shop and support our local businesses, our local small businesses, and look beautiful in the process. So Philine, such a pleasure having you on today. I appreciate your time. Thank you so much for joining.
Of course, thanks for having me.